Okay, good morning. I'm just making sure it's working and it's going to go live on Instagram because I don't think it is. I think something's happened here. Right, 1 minute. Oh no, here we go. I think we're okay. Let's just check that we're definitely live. We normally are and we don't realise. Yeah, we are.
Live.
Fabulous. Okay, well, good morning, Kirsty. How are you
Good morning. I'm all right, thanks. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all good. Had a busy week. We've spoken at events, been to lots of networking, and it's been quite productive actually. So yeah, how about you? How's your week been?
Busy. Got a very busy day today, but then Fridays are always busy.
Yeah.
The scene's going off there. Hang on.
Today we are talking about the biggest lessons from 4 years in the industry. So we've been. How long have you been a VA, Kirsty?
This is my 5th year, I think. Yeah, 5th.
So I've been a VA 5 years and then 4 years as an agency owner. And so we thought today it would be really good to just talk about the kinds of things that we've experienced in our journey. And we're always really open, aren't we, and honest, and we don't hold anything back. And I think it's important because there'll be new VAs starting their businesses and maybe not aware of the pitfalls. It can feel really exciting. Do you remember those early days where you're like, I've started my business, I'm going to be a VA, and then freaking tumbleweed, there's no clients and you don't know what the hell's going on.
Do you know what? It's really funny, Mike, because I was only thinking about this the other day before I knew what we was like going to be talking about. And I can remember being like, I went out and bought my desktop. I was like, look at me. I took a photo of it. And we were in the other house before that. And it was a lot smaller than this one. And I remember it being, I was working out of my wardrobe because there was such tight space. I remember taking a picture and being like, this is the start of my business. And then being like, hello, where are all the clients?
That's all you concentrate on, isn't it? Like your website and, you know, I started in a caravan, you know, which was crazy. But, well, yeah, I did. But it is, you do focus on things that actually one of the lessons that I've learned is they're not important at all.
No.
You know, all you need is a laptop and a link to your products or services, but not a website. And you still don't have them, do you?
No, and I remember having a massive long list of like a checklist, and I remember thinking, I can build a website. It's a piece of doddle. I can absolutely do it. I remember going on and going, oh, this looks all right, and then going, yeah, no, that looks crap. No bother with that. But then I had a list of like, you know, social media things to do and website and what I've got to get, and you know, being all prepped and ready, and then just sort of.
Yeah, and it is like so exciting, and then could all of a sudden be really I think underwhelming, because the biggest problems that we face as VAs is getting clients, isn't it? It's the hardest thing that you have to deal with. And I think, does it get any easier? It gets easier from the sense that you know what you're doing. You start to earn money, so you can invest more in advertising. But it's still the same problem for any business. I don't think it matters whether you're a virtual assistant or any small business owner. Getting customers is always going to be your number one issue. I'd love to be constantly bogged down with inquiries. It would be amazing, wouldn't it? But it's difficult in those early days. So I think one of the earliest lessons for me is I wouldn't have concentrated on the website. That really didn't matter. You know, I always say your website, unless you're paying thousands in Google ads, is somewhere you send people to, not where they come from. As long as you've got like a Calendly link, as long as you've got a link to like a Canva document that tells people what your prices are, that's really all you need to get started. So that's probably one of the lessons I learned.
Yeah.
And then for me, another lesson I learned along the way was I probably should have charged. I don't regret charging lower when I first started, because I spent my first year working for another company as a freelancer to get experience. And actually, I'm glad I did that, and I would advise anyone to do that. Did you just start out straight off the bat on your own?
Yeah, I started out, so I was made redundant, and then I was on like garden leave or whatever they call it. And then I had one client to start off with, and it was like, I think it was 60? Yeah, 60 hours a month.
Wow.
So I started off with a big client, but the mistake I made was I just went, yeah, I'll do it for this amount per hour because it was so big. But those 60 hours were sometimes not used.
Yeah.
And so I'd saved that time, and I was a bit green and a bit worried about social media and all of that kind of thing. But because I had this one client that was 60 hours, I just kind of went with it and just sort of sat back and just did the work for them. So I think it's like, in terms of pricing, you do just have a look at everyone else's websites, don't you? But you feel like because they're such a big hourly client, you think you have to charge less, but actually you don't. And I wish I'd charged more now, because in hindsight, but
yeah, it's all about hindsight though, isn't it? I mean, I was the same. I charged much lower, and it's really hard then to raise your prices later on down the line. You feel uncomfortable doing it. You're worried that you're going to lose clients. I mean, the best time to raise your prices is the every April. You know, everything goes up. National minimum wage goes up. Price of products goes up. So it makes sense that you would naturally increase your prices. And I would advise any VA to every year raise your prices, even if it's by a small amount, because otherwise in about 5 years time you'll find that the cost of living and what you're all charging, they just ain't marrying up. And then to try and then suddenly add £5 an hour extra on top is going to be really difficult. Whereas even if you just add a couple of pounds every year, it's not going to seem that high. And we get a bit like stuck on the round numbers, don't we? £30 an hour, 35, 40. Well, what does 37 matter? What does 39.99 matter? You know, so I would definitely increase my prices every single year. That's another lesson, because I haven't done that either, and that's probably a bit of a mistake. The other thing is, you didn't charge up front, did you?
No, massive mistake. Huge.
Yeah, but it's a lesson learned, isn't it? And actually, I feel absolutely gutted. There's somebody in our VIP membership, and she's just told us that she's owed £1,400 and has been ghosted. And I was like, no, why aren't you charging up front? I have actually offered for you to be the credit controller. So
I was just going to say that, because I did that for Alison from one of our associates.
Yeah.
And they paid within minutes.
Yeah. Well, I have, and for anybody listening, if this happens to you, and I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, you can send a letter before action. You can get a free template online. You can put the frighteners on people because you're threatening to take them to small claims court, and it can make them pay up. But I would anyway, for that sort of money, I probably would put in a small claims, because it's a lot of money to lose. But the biggest lesson is always charge up front. And it's so funny because it never crossed my mind to let people pay an invoice, but it never crossed your mind to charge up front.
It's one of those things, isn't it? And I think, again, it's just being new to being in this kind of world, because when you're in a full-time employment, when you have suppliers, they are on, you know, pay on invoice, credit terms 30 days, 7 days, whatever. And you naturally do think, oh, I'll just invoice on the end of the month. But the problem with that is, when you have only got a small amount of clients, like with my single client that I had, he would never pay on time, and I'd have to chase, and I was ghosted. And it became where it was like I was borrowing from blah, 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 and it was stressful. And that's not why I became my own business owner, because I didn't want to have that stress anymore. You know, I'd had 7 years of stress working in full-time employment. But the problem is that because you are remote, you can't just get in the car and pop round the corner and say knock, 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 because that's the idea of being a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
So if you charge up front, you've already got those funds. They've already secured your time. And it's I know it's so awkward, particularly if you have started doing pay on invoice. But if you're just starting out and you're just getting your first client, set up to be paid up front.
Yeah, 100%. And like you just said, when you took that client on, people forget, they make this mistake when you pay on invoice. Like you say, yeah, no problem, I'll just bill you at the end of the month for however many hours you use this month. If 1 month, like you said, it was 60 hours, but next month it's 30, and the month after that it's 60 again, and the month after that is 40, you're technically always having to keep 60 hours available and might only be using 40, and then that's 20 hours that you're losing, that you could be working with someone else. So one of the reasons putting your pricing into packages, it secures your time. It means you know where you are, you log how many hours you've got available. And if the client runs out of time because it's not enough, then they just buy more time or they increase their package. So it's not a difficult, I don't find it a difficult kind of system to follow. But yeah, I think the reason it's really funny because the reason you did it was because that's the industry you knew. But when I ran my first business for 10 years, I was in that similar industry where I would allow people to pay on invoice because it was one of those where you paid on delivery. So I, excuse me, ran a domestic and commercial laundry company and an ironing company. So for residential people, you would do their ironing, then drop it off and they'd pay you there and then. But for the commercial customers, so this was more like the wedding industry specifically, or we would partner with dry cleaners and places like that. So we would be like kind of white labeling their services. We would allow them to pay on invoice. But when it's a 30-day invoice, and then they pay within their 30 days because that's their terms, that's 60 days before you get paid. And not enough people realise that actually it's your terms, not theirs. And so it should be the end of that month if that's when you've invoiced. It's not I'll invoice you in 30 days and then you've got another 30 days to pay.
No.
So get rid of all of that and charge on invoice. And I'm fortunate enough I haven't had to deal with that. I can't imagine having to deal with that. And it's not just about worrying about not getting paid. It's all of the admin and the time that goes into having to chase invoices. That must be so stressful. And I would advise anybody, even if you're already charging on invoice, you can tell the client you're changing your terms and slowly make that change by, I think when we worked it out for you, it would be next month you'll charge the fee as normal plus the first few weeks of the following month, and you'll do that for a few months till all of a sudden they're in front.
Yeah,
and that's probably the best way to do it. But
it is a difficult conversation to have, and that's kind of, and I think as well because it was a weird, I don't know what the word would be, but it was just sort of not toxic, but it was because I was so frightened of them leaving because I was new and all the rest of it. And it is a difficult conversation to have, particularly if you have started off invoicing at the end of the month. Yeah. But you just have to have that awkward conversation. You just have to do it.
Did you find that because it was a big client, like 60-hour client, that you kind of didn't then look for any other clients?
Yeah, I did. And then particularly because we were in the previous house, and when we moved here, obviously everything goes up, blah, 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 blah. And then it was like, the stress was on them because I was like, right, I need to get more clients. But because I was still new to the business or to the industry and wasn't really sure about social media or anything like that, I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And then I met you.
Yeah, well, that's good news. I'm glad we met. But it is funny because if you suddenly put all your eggs in one basket, you know how many VAs get approached by maybe a past employee or a client that says, I want you to work exclusively for me, give you all these hours, but then the contract ends. You haven't spent any time filling up your pipeline. And so suddenly you're starting again. You have to be constantly filling up that pipeline with inquiries and leads. And then even if you are so busy with one client, they're a massive client, it doesn't stop you taking on associates. Do you think if you'd have known then about associates, because you've said before you didn't really know about agencies and things, do you think if you had, you might have then continued to take inquiries? And if inquiries had come in, but you couldn't physically do the work, you could have passed that out to other associates?
I think so. And I think it's good, again, in hindsight, to do a bit of research on becoming a virtual assistant and what, how you can, what I should have done was took on my own assistant to have actually done my social media, to have actually done, my marketing and all that kind of thing, because I wasn't comfortable doing it at the time. If I'd have brought an assistant on who knew how to do that, I could have then generated a waiting list, which is something I really encourage people to do because it just means that there's a demand for your services. Yeah. So that is something that, there are people out there that will happily work for a reduced rate to begin with. So that's something I regret doing. But again, I didn't know. I didn't know that was a thing.
And the thing is, as VAs, we are working with people. We're trying to tell them, like, you don't need to do everything yourself. And then we're kind of you know, we're hypocrites because we try to do everything ourselves, whereas what you just said, you didn't have those skills. So taking someone on who did, although that's an investment early doors and you might see it as something you can't afford, actually could increase your income tenfold. And so it would have been worth doing to keep that pipeline going. And then when the client did screw you over in the end, you would have been okay, because you would have had, I mean, you was okay, you did have clients, but you still needed more. You would have had that bank of clients coming in, or people would have known about you in the very least, because you would have had a constant presence.
That's right. And I remember at the time, it was like a realization. So basically, just shorten it down, we ended up having a bit of a falling out because I'd billed for full hours and I hadn't done those full hours, and we had a conversation, and basically I ended up being stuffed over for, I think was it 1,200 quid or a grand? It was a grand, wasn't it? Yeah. So we had a big, but then once we'd gone our ways, it was a mad scramble to go, I've got to get myself out there. So actually going from knowing nothing about social media and promoting myself, I did it all the wrong way because I was panicking, and it was just like chuck anything out there, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't have a plan. That's the other thing. You must have a plan of like, what happens if, and what happens if that, because otherwise it's exciting. I know it's exciting. You get a big client, you're like, yeah, I've got, but actually you need to plan for the future. If that client does leave, what you're going to do, so, particularly if they're a massive hourly month, you know, a month client. So, and I didn't do that.
It's such a good point.
I got to where I am today doing all these things wrong.
Because by making these mistakes, it's made you better at running your business. And you do have to make the mistakes to learn. And I think that was a great point about making a plan. So we've just transitioned our agency into business management and strategy solutions. And it is helping business owners with strategy, because not enough of them have any form of strategy whatsoever. So it is looking, it's like, for example, and look, we all make this mistake. Even I make these mistakes. Our business had to register for VAT. I saw it coming. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't plan for it. More out of fear than anything. I just didn't want it to happen. Yes, it's a signal of success, but also I knew it could impact our clients, and it did. And yet, had I prepared for it, I could have started the transition into the new business sooner. And so I would have then had this new pipeline of a new demographic of clients, instead of knee-jerking and being reactive. So it is about being proactive and saying to yourself, okay, I've got a 60-hour client. That's amazing. What if that client leaves? And then having a plan for that. So I think, that's a brilliant lesson. And at least now you know, and you can help other virtual assistants through conversations like this to learn from those mistakes. That's what it's all about, isn't it? If you're joining, we've just touched on charging up front. Such a big issue for virtual assistants. It's something you should definitely be doing. And we're going to be covering our biggest lessons in the industry today. And if you have any comments, any questions, just pop them into the chat and we'll be more than happy to answer them as we go along. I think there's so many things that we've learned and will continue to learn. For me, another one is realizing you don't have to work with shit clients. You can say no. You can say no to anyone you want, because it's your bloody business.
And it is difficult because, you know, you don't want to turn clients down. But I know we've spoken about this before, but there have been, oh God, I can probably say about 5 or 6 clients that I really have not enjoyed working with. And I'm really lucky at the moment because I'm actually completely full now, and I keep on going, oh, just do another one. I'm like, But I do now have the opportunity to say, unfortunately, I don't want to work with you, because, you know, if I've done an inquiry call, and I'm very good at judging people on the calls, that's what I do for you, and that's what I do for myself and everything. And so I'm very good at judging whether there's somebody I really want to work with. And there have been times where I've sat on a call and gone, absolutely bloody not. Even I've come off a call and go, yeah, no, we're not working with you, because I can sense that. And don't ever think that you have to work with clients just because they're a client. If you know they're going to be toxic, if you know they're going to be shit, if you know they're going to be mean and nasty, because you're giving that time to somebody you don't really want to work with, and that's time you can't give to somebody that you really want to work with. That's the thing.
Exactly, 100% right. But you don't realize that at the time because you're so desperate for clients. But it can have so much damage. You can do so much damage to your mental health and to your self-esteem if you end up working with a bad client who puts you down, makes you feel worthless, and then suddenly you might even end up giving up being a VA, or it might then impact you further on down the line with other clients. I think you have to hold on for the right clients, because if you're filling up your time, like you've just said, with bad clients, you're missing opportunities to work with good ones. And I suppose it's also recognizing the signs, the red flags, isn't it, of what is a client that's likely to be a nightmare, that you may want to terminate that relationship early. What would you say the red flags are?
I think, well, one thing I would say just before that is that we're all human and we all have gut feeling. Go with your gut feeling, because it's telling you that it's not a good idea. But I think from my experience, I would say it's somebody that doesn't really engage in conversation with you on your initial call, will just band off tasks, what they need to do, which is fine. But I think there is a point where you have an inquiry call that you need to get the feel of each other. And that means, are you chatting about, your personal life or the weather or whatever? But I think when somebody is just reeling off tasks, what they need to do, you need to be available within a minute of me sending a message or an email. And that is a massive red flag. Somebody that expects you to respond within a specific amount of time is not somebody you want to work with, because they will be nothing but a nightmare.
Yeah, and they're not appreciating.
Have had that.
Oh God, yeah, and they're not appreciating you as a business owner. They're seeing you as their member of staff, and you're not. You are a freelancer, and it is your business. And we have had those type of clients, and I think, yeah, you're right. Those are red flags. Red flags are like demanding, but also blaming you for their mistakes, for demanding to know why you haven't been responsive, especially when they're clients that are paying for like 5 hours a month, which is 15 minutes a day.
This is the thing, they don't, and I think it's really key as well to mention when you're speaking to a potential new client or a new client, it's clear to make it clear to them that they are not your only client. And also something that you've done, which I don't do, is you can actually say to a client, I'll be working on your tasks on a Monday at 10 o'clock for 15 minutes, because 5 hours a month is 15 minutes. Once those 15 minutes are up, that's it. I'll move on to the next day, and make that clear from the beginning.
Yeah. Even if you have to say, like, so I might not be able to be responsive, but I'll try. If not, then I'll catch up on your messages the next day. I think as long as clients know where they are, they're quite good at understanding that. But actually, if your plan as a savvy business owner is to upsell your time, then the best way to do that is to make the client really, really understand how little time they are paying for, so that they are more likely to buy more time. So if you're showing them that, yeah, I can do all of this, I could be totally responsive, just 5 hours a month, they've got no incentive to then go to like a 10-hour plan or a 15-hour plan. So for goodness sake, make sure you are, I think it's about being, having a strong, positive mindset and confidence. And that's another lesson, isn't it? Like we talked about this, I think it was on the last show or the one before, about if you're going to invest in anything when you start your VA business, it shouldn't be a website. It should be a mindset coach or some mindset lesson, something that's going to make you really positive, because you're going to have to really be able to go through some difficult times as a business owner, but also you're going to have difficult conversations. You're going to have to be able to stand up to clients, and you're going to have to be assertive on inquiry calls. And I think even I made this mistake. So one of the lessons is we do a 5-hour plan, and I kind of kidded myself into saying, well, I didn't kid myself. I think it is a genuine reason, was you do get very nervous clients that aren't quite ready, they're scared, and so it's a great entry point for them. But actually it was more fear of them not signing up. So I would have that 5-hour plan as like a way out. So instead of, I don't think I ever said to a client on an inquiry call, I think you should start at 10 hours. Always said 5 hours, just because I was so frightened that they wouldn't go for 10. Now I've got no problem saying, I think you need 20 hours or whatever. And there's no point in working with us if you're going to do less than that, because you're not helping them by not being honest. They'll probably leave you if they sign up for 5 hours. You knew they needed 15, and within a week they've got no more time left.
Exactly.
You've just been honest, haven't you?
And I think as well, one of the massive mistakes I made with my first client was I was available all the time. And that meant, I was taking phone calls on bank holidays. I was getting phone calls at weekends, WhatsApp messages, emails. I can remember there being like there was one client I worked with, and something had gone wrong with something, not that I'd done, and it was 11:30 at night, and I was sat at my computer trying to figure, on a Friday night, right, and I'd had a wine, and it was 11:30, and I was trying on call with this client, trying to figure out what had gone wrong, and I sat there and I went, nah, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. And so just have those clear boundaries. We always say, get a separate work phone. Don't answer your messages at weekends. If you're unavailable, if you're in the gym, if you're walking the dog, if you're having whatever you're doing, only respond to those messages when you're ready to respond to them, and make that clear from the very start. Don't look at your messages at weekends, bank holidays, Christmas Eve, bloody New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It has to be clear from the get-go.
Yeah, it's really good advice. And I only got a work phone last year because I just felt it wasn't really the clients, because my clients knew that you can message me, but you're not going to get a response. They'd say things like, I'm messaging you now, but I don't expect you to respond, because they knew the rules. But they needed to brain dump, and that was fine by me. I'm just not going to open them till Monday. But it was, I think we were all probably in way too many WhatsApp groups. The total, the constant amount of messages, it was overwhelming. And I just thought, I need a separate phone to separate some of this flipping crap out. And it did mean that I could switch off that phone and say, I'm not available. Because one of the things I hated, you just get a random WhatsApp call that you wasn't expecting from your client. You had no idea why. And I know it sounds stupid because you just answer the call, wouldn't you? But actually, I'd be in the middle of another client's work, and I'd think, well, I'm not just here. Like, you should really schedule these calls with me. And so for that, that was one of the reasons I got a work phone.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done that, and actually, being completely truthful as we always are, I do have a couple of clients that I work with that they don't have. It's an ad hoc. So when they need something, they come to me. And so what I do is I allocate an hour per week, because if they need something doing, I've already put that hour to one side. And if they don't use it, and I can do other stuff in between. But because they are they need a response, because they're the industry that they're in. And actually what I do, sometimes I do work weekends, and I message them and say, just to let you know, I'm working this weekend if you need me for anything. But there are times when they've messaged and I haven't seen it because I don't look at it because I'm not working that weekend or that evening or whatever. And they don't bother me with it. They just delete it. They just say, are you working? And I don't respond, or I say, yes, I am, or whatever. And they won't bother me after that. And that's a really good, we have such a good relationship. We talk all the time, and that's fine, but that's on my terms.
Yeah.
So it's not them saying, can you work today? I say, I'm working today, but if you need me for anything, whatever. So again, it's on my terms.
Yeah, it's got to be on your terms. And I think if you know it's a potential disaster client, then you should just steer clear of weekends and evenings and things like that.
Absolutely.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
You do have to lead your clients a lot. You have to handhold them. I mean, I had a client, and she was like 5 hours a month, but wanted a 1 hour call every week. And I said, well, we won't ever do any work then, will we? Because I'll just be on calls with you every week. And she couldn't understand it. And I was like, you must understand that that's going to literally take all of your time. We don't need to do that. But you have to tell them these things, don't you? I think one of the positive lessons I've learned is the first 2 years, I just invested in personal development. So I was a member of my local chamber of commerce. I'd advise anyone to do that. It's a really worthwhile investment. And I'm not a member now. I think I got what I needed out of it. And they have so much free training, so many free courses. So I went on everything you could think of, from SEO to marketing to AI, learned so much. And it kind of just boosted my capabilities and meant that I could offer more expensive services as time went on, because I knew more. So I would advise anybody to do that. Like, if you're not sure about something, there's like a platform called Future Learn. And I think it's called Future Learn. You can do loads of free courses on there and get the certificates at the end of it, like social media and stuff like that. And then they are great for, endorsements on your LinkedIn profile or on your website. Definitely invest in your personal development as much as you can in the first couple of years, even the first year. It will make such a difference. And I know so much now. I teach people things now that I did not know when I started, because I do invest. And I think the other thing is, don't be scared to spend the money. So many VAs are holding on to every penny. You will not build a business that way. Yes, it's scary, but you have to think about it like speculate to accumulate. The more that you spend money on the right things, like the right memberships or the right courses or the right, training programs, whatever that might be, then that's going to come back. You'll see a return on that investment, because you're going to learn so much more about how to run your business. I think it's definitely worth it. And too many VAs, they spend money on things that are not necessary. I've seen, I don't know what this is all about, but virtual assistants that train to be virtual assistants. I don't know how you can actually train to be a VA. Like, I think you can train, like go on a course about, all these things we're talking about, like charging up front and all of that. But I don't think you can just learn admin skills in like 6 weeks and that's it, you're a VA. You have to have come with that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, and I think you have to have some sort of interest as well in it. I mean, when I first started, I didn't know anything about, social media or, marketing strategies or anything like that. And I've learned all of that from you.
Oh,
like, no, honestly, I have. Like, I wouldn't be able to offer what I do to clients without being taught by somebody who knows what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to start building websites and coding and all that stuff, because it's just not me. But I can literally, as I say, I'm full now because I've learned all of that from somebody. And you were such a good teacher as well. I remember early on when I used to do your LinkedIn blogs, and you used to do me little videos when you were traveling. I've still got all those little videos. And I used to watch them step by step, pause it, do this. And I was so terrified. I was absolutely terrified the first time I did it. And I did it, and I was like, is it all right? And you were like, yes, amazing, thanks. And I was like, I did it right. And then more and more, I became interested in it. And I wanted to know, about graphics and visuals, and didn't know anything about Canva, so that was all new to me. And it's all about, if somebody's willing to teach you, that is the best way to learn. You don't have to go on, as you say, a million courses to learn how to do this, that, and the other. It's good to do your personal development, but there's so many free resources out there that you can just, YouTube, TikTok,
YouTube,
even.
Yeah. And it's self-taught as well. Like everything, I gave a talk on Wednesday and people were asking questions at the end. And I said, everything I've just talked to you about, I learned myself. I'm not qualified. I left school at 15 with no qualifications, right? It's all self-taught. It's just having a go. It's making mistakes. It's cocking up. And actually, one of our associates, I've been helping her this week with some automated workflows. And she said, how do you figure out how to put these automations in place? She says, have you got a resource thing, or do you just do it in your head? And I was like, sorry, I just do it in my head. It's become so natural that I say, sit away from the computer, think about what you want that to look like, figure out a way to make it work. I'll always figure out a way to make it work. But that's just come from having a go. There's some sort of controversy around this, right? So I think, and people listening can tell me what they think about this, but I've been in VA Facebook groups where somebody has said, well, what would you do if a client asked you to do a job you didn't know how to do? And I say, if you are the kind of person that knows you can pick things up quickly, you could go on YouTube, you could learn how to do it, you could have a go, you should have a go. And this well-known VA coach come on and was like, oh, I think that's terrible advice. You should not. So basically, you should just stay in your lane and never learn and never thrive. So if you're just a basic admin VA, that's all you're ever going to be. I don't think that's right. I'm a tech VA, but I wasn't when I started. And the only reason for that is and marketing is because I have said yes to things and learned how to do it. I think as long as you're honest with the client, say, look, I've never done it before, but I'm really good at learning. I'm willing to give it a go. That is a great way to learn and better your development and your knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. But my best advice would be to always be honest with the client. If it is something you've never done before, don't say, oh, yeah, I can do that. If you can't, just say, I've not done it before, but I'm willing to give it a go. And you're absolutely right. And I think when people do my head in with them Facebook groups, honestly, not just like VAs, whatever, there's always some dickhead out there that's got to you come across with some completely pointless that's just your opinion, and your opinion is proof in the pudding, because that's what you did with me. That you said to me, just have a go. And I've done things like, for one of my clients, I've just done like a little automation thing. It's not massive, not anything like yours. It's literally like about 3 steps. But I wouldn't have ever learned to do that without you, or without just going, sod it, I'll just see. I'll test it and see what happens. And it worked. I remember that day. I'm just going, not that I'd ever class myself as a tech VA, but remember just going, I've learned something new today.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah, I learn every single day something new. Even yesterday, so I talk to people about building your business to scale and exit, right? I am amazed at the amount of virtual assistants that are running an actual business that they don't treat as a business and do not have a plan to sell it one day, because they feel like, well, who's going to want to buy that? That's not going to be worth anything. It is worth something. I would buy existing virtual assistant businesses today, if I could bloody find any, that had a client list, right? It'd be easier than me trying to constantly find clients from scratch. Also, I sold my first business, not for loads of money, not for anywhere near loads of money, but I still sold it. It was such a good feeling to know that I didn't just say, well, that's it now, buy business. Like, I actually did something with it. And even if it's for a small amount, you should sell it. But I always say, that this could go towards your pension pot. And actually, there was a woman that gave a talk yesterday, and she was an accountant, and she said, if you've got to think about exiting your business, and truth be told, she says, I think it was like only so much percent, 90%, there's a small amount anyway of businesses that will ever actually sell. So you shouldn't rely on it as your pension pot. And I thought, you know what? I will now use that in my narrative when I talk to people, because I've learned it's not always a new skill. It's sometimes a new perspective on things. Yeah. And so I've learned a new perspective to put it that way. Sorry, one moment. Someone's at the door and the dog's barking. Oh my God, right. So that is real. That is, sorry, I'll cut that out of the podcast. But that is a new perspective. But it does amaze me how many people don't think like that. And also that you could, if you did want to seriously sell it, if you're thinking about it now and thinking, oh, actually, that's a good idea, then start to change your mindset into scaling into an agency and growing your business into something bigger.
Yeah, it's not something that would ever cross my mind at all. It's not. I don't think that's like why when I set out doing this, that was never my end goal. It was just more, this is what I wanted to do, and this is what I did. So I don't think any VA sets out thinking, well, one day I'm going to sell this, because they don't think it's a sellable business, but it is, because you're making it work. So if that is your end goal, then that's then you can get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just making it profitable, or even just you've got a client base that you are willing to sell. When I sold my business, it's funny, really. I sold it in 2 parts because as I say, I ran a domestic laundry and ironing company. The first part, I'd met a man who was running a very similar business to mine, but he had a shop and everything. I had a workshop at the bottom of my garden. He had a professional outfit. And what had happened was, I'd had a child. I'd had my first baby, and he'd been very poorly. And sorry about the dog. I haven't even got a door to lock him out. Bear with me.
Everybody.
So yeah, I've got him with me. Look, here he is, naughty boy. Hello, Miles.
He looks really happy.
I know, yeah. So so basically, we had a meeting, and he agreed he was going to buy my van. He was going to buy the basically the client list, the whole client list, and he would buy take on all my subcontractors and also my van driver. So he was going to basically take the business as it was, but not as the company. So the company would just go into non-existence. So he wasn't going to keep. Well, actually, it wasn't that. He wasn't going to go into non-existence. I was keeping the company name. He was taking everything else. And the reason was I wasn't completely shutting the business down. I had a hotel that I did business with, and I was going to keep the hotel because it would give me a really good income while I was raising my, small child. And so I was going to keep the hotel. I could do it in my car, it didn't really matter. And I was going to then use a dry cleaner to do a bulk of the work. So I needed to keep the company name, but agree not to trade like I was before. And that's how I sold it. So I basically sold the customer list, right? And then about 2 years later, the hotel decided to open another branch and wanted me to run that one too, do all the laundry for that. And I just couldn't. I didn't have the capacity. I didn't want to start to grow again. And so I sold it a second time to the the laundrette that was doing all the laundry. So they then bought that. So one lot brought all the customer list and the other lot brought the hotel chain side. And that's how it, but that then I did cease to exist, the business, but it wasn't selling the business as a package. So you have to think about it like that. You could sell your client list and it could be worth money to a VA. So, think about that. It's important. If anyone's got any questions while you're here, then please drop them in the comments. We're more than happy to answer them. What's some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
Oh my God. I don't know. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because you don't like to be critical of yourself, but I think it's just being confident in everything, like, setting your boundaries, being confident in yourself. Don't buy a desktop, buy a laptop. Don't know even why that entered my head. And get a work phone.
Yeah, definitely get a work phone. I think another thing is, like, if you are, it is about getting clear on where you're trying to get to. So if you have a certain income goal, you've got to sit down with yourself and say, well, how many hours a day do I want to work? And how many of these things do I have to sell to get there? And will charging at this price ever get me there? If you want to earn a lot of money and you want to scale into an agency, there are so many lessons we've learned along that journey, aren't there, that I think you can touch on. So how you go about working with associate VAs. I think one of the lessons I've learned is I kind of waited. I didn't wait long. I took on associates very quickly. But I realise now, one of the things I always say to people is, if you don't have the skill set, don't go out there and learn it. Get someone else that can. And you can then bolt that on as a package. So, for example, we offer admin and tech and marketing. But the tech and marketing, I only started offering when I knew I could do it. But actually, I could have started taking on associate VAs before I knew how to do it and sell those services, even though I didn't have the skills to do them. So that's the other thing. If you're a VA and you can only do, like, you haven't got all of those skills yet, you don't need to. You can you can start interviewing virtual assistants, have them approved. You just be honest with them, say, I'm just growing. I don't have loads of clients yet. As soon as I do, and you're a good match, I'll be letting you know. As long as they're there, and then you can start advertising those services, even though you don't have that skill set. And also do it that way. Don't do it the way. I mean, sometimes what I would do is I would have inquiry calls with people, and they would say, yeah, I want this. And I'd go, I've got the perfect associate for you. I didn't have any associates. I was knowing that after that call, I would scramble about furiously in Facebook groups trying to find an associate. And that is not the way to do it.
No, it's not. But then again, we've learned that that's not the way to do it. But I think as well, just be really, really careful because, when you're taking on associates, do your homework, because we didn't, did we?
Not always.
In the beginning.
No.
And it went bad.
Yeah, I think that's the other lesson. It's treating your associates like they are employees, in the sense that if you was a business owner and you was employing someone, you'd onboard them correctly. You would treat them with respect and loyalty. You want to create that sense of loyalty. Normally you do that with, like, benefit schemes and stuff. You can't do that with associates because they're not your employees, but there are certain things you can do. So what we do is, they all have their own internal email. It gives them access to our chat channel. So we're all there to support one another, and that channel can get really busy with someone saying, oh my God, I think I've cocked up someone's website, and we all jump up. There's no judgment. Everybody gets in to help. We do our end of the month virtual coffee, so we can check in on everyone. I give them, like, free access to training or videos or anything I can to help them. And I think if you treat your associates that way, and lead rather than try to act like you're the big boss, then and show that you're going to be there to support them as well, I think it can work really well. But one of the things we did was ask for CVs, which is just a stupid thing to do when you're taking on virtual assistant associates, because it's not a job. And then we didn't vet them properly. We just accepted at face value, really, that the skills they said they had, and we don't do that anymore. So we have quite a strict process now.
I think, though, with the whole CV thing, again, it's because you know what you've done when you're employed. And I think when you're doing something like this, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, you automatically go, can you send me a CV? Well, a freelancer wouldn't necessarily have a CV anyway. They probably have one from before when they were employed or whatever. So they probably wouldn't necessarily have one. And these days, we don't have anything like that. We have like a profile that they need to complete that asks specific questions. And, you know, as you say, we've got a really strict vetting process now, which is just an absolute godsend, because we did accept people quite early on, didn't we? Without sort of looking too much into them and that kind of thing. And I think it's difficult as well, because when you're interviewing for somebody in employment, you can ask for references. Whereas when you're a freelancer, you can't necessarily ask for references because it's all about client confidentiality and all that kind of thing. So you can't ask for proof of work or anything like that. So I think you are kind of reliant on people. And we were very trusting, because we trust each other with our lives. We just went, oh, these people are so nice and they're so lovely and come on board and be with us. And then we were like, oh, go away.
But we have got an amazing team now, which is absolutely lovely. You know, I think one of the other lessons that's just popped to my mind is not having multiple calls with potential clients. Like, you have one call, that is it. You give them all the information they need, and then you charge them for any follow-ups. Because do you know the amount of times I ended up, there was this one guy, and he made what did he make now? So he used to get, it was really good, the concept. So, you know, like rubber. I think it was rubber from like tires and that. And or was it leather? No, it was rubber. And it was really good because they just end up in landfill. And he would make really great things out of them, like bags and stuff. And he wanted these to be really high end, but he just really wasn't making any money. And God, he used to just book calls with me all the time, like I was his therapist. And in the end, I was like, you know, are you signing up or not? And that kind of stayed with me, because I'd had a few people before that did this, and I thought, I'm not going to be someone's therapist. And I actually started doing a coaching course, and one of the things they said is you can listen to them and you can empathize, but you can't get into the hole with them. And that's part of the problem. When you start having multiple calls, you're just getting into the hole with them, because they'll be complaining about things. Woe is me, it's really difficult. Your job is to be, understand that. That's what I'm here for. You're going to take me on or not? And if not, go whine to someone else. You know what I mean?
And that's all time that you're not being paid for, or B, you could be working with a paying client. And I can remember early on, having a conversation going, because you'd sort of say, oh, like, you know, it's such and such have come back about signing up. And I'd had like 2 or 3 calls with them, and there'd been like ping pong tennis with emails. I remember saying to you, I don't know how many more ways I can phrase, are you ready to sign up with us? Because I regurgitated it, and it would go on for months and months, and then they'd be like, no. And that's all time that you're paying me for, and I'm getting nowhere. So that's why we went, right, one call, everything's on that call. Like, we, you know, backwards and forwards, how they want to work, how we work, how it all works, done. And then we used to do or set up a discovery call with our VA, so you can chat to them, and they'd have a call with the VA, and they'd get loads of free information from that VA about how to do it and what to use, and they'd go, see ya. And now we took all of that out, so now we have one discovery call, then we send them a welcome video, and that's it. And then they go into an automation. So all of that time, and I'm talking hours and hours a month, I used to spend chasing and chasing and chasing, and it equates to nothing.
Absolutely. And Kirsty's quite right. And it's quite funny. It's not just about the process. It's about the psychology that you're putting the client into, because what we do now is we call it our term convert clients in 24 hours. it's actually 48 hours, but they normally do convert within those 24 hours. And that's because, like Kirsty just said, they go into an automated workflow. At the end of the call, once Kirsty's had the call, they go into this automation that's triggered by what Kirsty said their next steps are. Kirsty doesn't do any chasing at all. They get all the emails they need to get. They get a welcome video with the associate saying who Kirsty's matched them with. And they say, we're only going to hold this VA's time for 48 hours. If you don't sign up by then, it's too late. And that's it. And we just don't chase. And I think the psychological part of that is we're showing that client, we're not desperate. We're not desperate for you. We've got loads of clients. We're really successful. And the minute you start begging, you've just raised your hand and showed them that you're not worth anything. And I think that's part of that bravery of kind of having that confidence, isn't it? I mean, we offer this system, by the way, in our membership. So our Growth Essentials membership, you can get the exact system and software that we use, and all of that's done for you in it. I'll put that in the show notes, but you can go to morethanava.org and take a look. But yeah, I love our processes now. And I will say one of the biggest lessons, the best lessons, is take on an assistant like I took on Kirsty. I don't even like calling you an assistant. In fact, you're our client magic maker. You're just everything to everyone in the business, but you're way, way more than that. You're like my best friend, and you're just someone I can constantly like sound off to. If it's such a nice, secure feeling to know that you've always got somebody there in the background. And sometimes I just ring Kirsty. I can hear myself waffling for no reason other than the fact I just really want to stay on the phone with her. And I did this yesterday on the way to my networking event. I could hear she only asked me to call her about one thing, and I'm just chatting away because she gets it, and it's just really great. And when things are going wrong, we can sit and go, okay, what did we do wrong? How can we do things better? That is the biggest takeaway from me, because I managed a team of people before I started this business, and I was guilty of blaming them for everything. And when I looked back on those times afterwards, I realized it was probably my fault a lot of the time. And so now in this business, when things go wrong, even if, I mean, sometimes I don't even know the clients because I don't work with them anymore. Our associates do. But if something goes wrong, I always think, what could I have done better? And you know, 9 times out of 10, it is normally something I could have done better. And it's amazing when you go through that process in your mind. It really is. It could be that I've dropped the ball. I've not been around the team as much recently. Every time we've done that exercise, it's come back that something needs to change from the top. And that's important.
Yeah, I mean, you say that a lot to me. And sometimes I do think you beat yourself up way too much with that. Because I think, you know, it's shared. And we both, you know, I'll take responsibility for some things, you know, I've ballsed up or whatever. But I think as human beings, we do focus on the bad parts of it. But actually, when you think about it, if I just use what happened yesterday as an example, you know, somebody came directly to me in a mad panic, something had gone wrong. And, you know, after I'd sorted all of that out, she was so grateful. And I kind of sat there and went, she came to me rather than just panicking. She felt like she could come to me and speak to me about it. And that's what the relationship we have. Like, I'll come to you. Like last week, I said to you about this idea about podcast guests. And you were like, oh, yeah, it's brilliant. And I got off the call and I was like, yeah, like that, right? But if you do have a relationship like we do, and there are things that I've pissed up on and I've gone, shit, I'm so sorry, and like vice versa and that, but we don't have that awkward relationship, do we? We don't have that.
There's no blame.
There's no blame. And because we're in it together and we've been in it together, like I couldn't even imagine it not being like this.
No. One day we'll have a big office in London or something.
Yeah, we'll be in Mayfair. But actually, we've only met twice.
Yeah.
In person in 4 years.
That's
it's mental.
It is, isn't it? In fact, Pete, my husband, said to me last night, so when we're seeing Kirsty next time, I was like, that's random. I don't know. He says, we ought to go down there, really, or up there, down there for the weekend. I was like, it's a long way to go for a weekend. We'll have to look at it because we're in the middle of opening a co-working business, as you do. So super busy. But you know what? It's so nice to reflect on the last 4 years and the journey we've been on. And we're about to do it all over again because our business has just transitioned. And the reason, if you missed that when you first joined, is one of the things you need to do. I've started to have this little mantra is if you've got a 90-day plan, think 30 days ahead of those 90 days, every 30 days ahead of the next 30, because you've got to think, okay, I'm going to get there. What do I need to do 30 days before that, to get there? One of the reasons is you've got to plan ahead for when things go wrong. And there are 2 examples of that have happened to me recently. And I know better. I tell people this all the bloody time. One of them is we had to register for VAT in June, which is great, brilliant success. In fact, we have now become 6 figures, which is amazing. But I can't see that in my bank at the moment, but I saw it coming and I did not plan for it, and it hit us hard. So we had a lot of clients leave us. I had to take out a loan to bridge that gap for the cash flow. It was being very difficult times. I should have made that transition earlier. The other problem is we have our own bespoke time portal system that was built for us at my expense. And the web developer, the guy who did it, we've had numerous issues with over the last couple of years. And despite knowing that it was going to come to a head, I haven't yet left him, and now it's come to a head, and I should have done that sooner. So it is about planning ahead for what are the problems that can face you, not just from this kind of thing, but from an economy point of view, from a political point of view. So what's changing from a technology point of view, all the different things that are happening in the world, the outside world, that can impact you as a virtual assistant. So what are those outside things that can make a difference to your business in a negative way that you need to prepare for now? So that is something that I'll definitely be doing going forward. I'll definitely be more proactive going forward, for sure. I wish I'd these things sooner.
Again, it's something that you just wouldn't think about, is it? I think from my side, I think it's more, again, looking ahead and having that plan. Somebody said to me yesterday, I was talking to them about ChatGPT. They said, that ChatGPT AI is going to do you out of a job. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, actually, they do say, don't they? But from my side, I don't go that big. I just think, right, plan ahead. So I've got, 8 clients at the moment. What if 2 of those clients leave? What am I going to do then? So it's all about, like I say, get a waiting list, because that shows that you're in demand as well. So people can sign up to your waiting list, and then you do have a backup. If 2 or 3 clients leave, you've got 2 or 3 clients you can then replace it with. So that would be my key advice to anybody starting out. That's
really good advice. And also, I was going to say something I completely forgot now on the back of that. But yeah, that is amazing advice. You definitely need to be doing that and having that kind of waiting list going. Or listen to last week's show where we talked about passive income streams, and we gave a lot of ideas on the things you can do, didn't we? On what you can do as a VA to earn additional income alongside your business. So if you haven't heard it, that's available now on either morethanava.org/podcast or on Apple, Spotify. Just look for the VA Live Lounge. But please give us a subscribe while you're there, because it just helps us to keep showing up and doing this. And every time we do it, it's all just to help you. Next week, we've got a guest on the show. We are joined by Leanne, and she's going to be, God, Leanne, what's her last name now? I should know. Harris. She's one of our associates. But Leanne practices in belief coding, and she's going to come along to talk about the imposter syndrome that we face as virtual assistants and how we can use belief coding to really change our perspective on that. So I'm really excited about that, because she's done a session on you, hasn't she? And she's going to do one on me. And I think just, knowing that there are resources out there to change your mindset on things. One of the things I've come to discover is that I'm not trying to make loads of money. And if I'm not trying to make loads of money, or I'm not comfortable earning loads of money, what's the point in doing what I'm doing? So I've got to get comfortable with money. I have a better relationship with it. And so she's going to help me break free of those fears, which I'm really excited about. So it's been interesting. It's been nice trip down memory lane. Nobody's popped anything in, but that's okay. If you do have any questions, you can always send us a DM. You can follow us on Facebook, I Am More Than a VA. You can follow us on Instagram, which you're already on, and on YouTube, or you can pop to morethanava.org and join our free membership and get loads of free resources in there. And also we've currently got our 20 ways to get clients cheat sheet, which I'll link in the comments. And we do have loads of things coming up. So we've got a masterclass on the 25th of November, which is going to be how to convert time-wasting inquiries into instant clients. So it talks about that method we've just spoke about, how we turn people around in 24 hours. We're going to be teaching that in the masterclass. And also on the 30th of January, we're going to be holding our first ever workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop, how to get clients. And so we've currently got £100 off if you join the waiting list for that. You'll just have a look on the grid. You'll see all of the links on there, or head to the link in the bio and yeah, do all the things that you need to do. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Come with your questions, especially if you're struggling with things like imposter syndrome. Kirsty, have a great weekend, and I'll see you after this call. See ya.